Torah of truth and implanted eternal life within us.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are in part 4 of a biblical diet. An amazing series on diet. And diet is important to all of us. What we eat is important to all of us. It's a very passionate subject, and we all have strong views on that. And so this has not been really easy. I've gotten a lot of feedback. It's one of those, I hate it and I love it. Some love it, some hate it. I don't got very many people in the middle. So it's been challenging. I'm learning, I'm growing. But it's a great subject for all of us. So today I want to talk about vegans, vegetarians, and kosher omnivores. All right? Who's right about diet though, right? Is it the vegans, the vegetarians, or the kosher omnivores? Which is the right diet? Today, like the days of the believers in Rome, ancient Rome, right? Dietary issues remain important. In fact, for some of us, personal views about diets become a man-made dogma to defend and protect and even project on others. But what does God say about food? And what is it that He legislated? What has He authorized? Because whatever that is, we should rally around that and build unity. We should be united in that. And then beyond that, right? Beyond what He says as it relates to our own personal views, should we not extend grace and liberty to each other? Stated in another way, is it possible to become critical and judgmental about personal opinions on diets? And won't this, in the end, spawn division and alienate people in our Torah-based community? So today, we're going to look at the wisdom of the Apostle Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles, as he delves into this subject and this issue in his community in Rome. And we'll see how he solved this painful problem that was so divisive in his community. So let's begin. As we jump into this passage, there's been 3 other sermons on this topic. So there's some history and trajectory of what I've been teaching. If you've not listened to all of those, I encourage you to listen to those, because what I'm sharing now is going to raise some questions if you haven't listened to the previous teachings in this series. So keep in mind that we've already demonstrated that the food laws that God gave us through Moses were not done away with. They were actually fully established by Yeshua under the new covenant. In fact, Mark 7 was the first big passage we looked at, where Jesus supposedly declared all things clean, right? We discovered it was in reference to kosher food that may have become defiled through unwashed hands. He was saying, your defiled hands can't defile your kosher food. What God declared edible is edible, even if your hands were unclean. It's not going to ruin your food. Thus, He declared all food clean. And so we saw that He wasn't doing away with the dietary laws at all. It was about hand washing. That was the issue, right? And then also Peter's vision. We talked about Peter's vision, where God states to Peter to no longer call common what God has cleansed. We saw this was in reference to kosher food as well. That if kosher food becomes contaminated with unclean food, it's common, it's profane, it's now, not edible, right? And what we saw in Peter's vision is, well, if it was originally clean, then God can restore it to its original state. That was the point. And then Peter makes the connection with, so the Gentiles who were made in the image of God and were clean can also be restored to that state of purity. Even though they've been defiled with sin and alienated from God, they can be restored too. So it all makes sense without in any way disrupting or doing away with the biblical diets. So it's been fascinating to look into those issues of those 2 classic passages that are often misunderstood because they're not read within their Jewish cultural contexts. So it's important to catch all that as we move forward and learn about what Paul's talking about in his letter to the Romans. This antecedent theology that the law has not been done away with but fully established in Yeshua is still in place. So that when Paul begins to talk about the issues, we need to understand that within that framework. So, are we ready for another big passage that is often used to dismiss the dietary laws that God has given us? And even more specifically, how dietary issues can become divisive in a community and split a community. That's actually, for Paul, the bigger issue. So, let's jump into it. Romans chapter 4, verses 1 through 3, we'll begin there. So it opens up with this. As for the one who is weak in faith, welcome him, but not to quarrel over his opinions. In other words, Paul's going to address opinions. Paul's not talking about the commandments of God. The commandments of God are not opinions. What he's going to deal with is opinions that people hold about dietary issues. As for the one who's weak in faith, welcome him. Who's he talking to, right? He's saying, hey, as a community, those that are within your community that are not as strong as you in your faith, welcome them. And not to argue with them about their opinions that you view as weak. In other words, everyone has a right to their own opinion. We should all have a right to our own thoughts about what we think about things. That's an inherent human right to be free in our thinking. And we should respect each other's right to their opinions, even if their opinions are wrong. We have a right to be wrong. Liberty gives us a right to be wrong. Now, for me, if my opinion's wrong, I want to know that because I want to change my opinion if it's wrong. I have a right to be wrong, but I also realize I don't want to be wrong, so I do want to have some help, but I want to be helped in a way that's, kind and loving, right? Not in a way that's judged and belittled. So Paul says, don't argue and quarrel over the opinions of others that you consider weak. Verse 2, he gives an example. One person believes he may eat anything, while the weak person eats only vegetables. So the anything in this passage is in the context of diet and within the wider context of the dietary laws of God. Okay? This is very important for us to understand. The anything relates to anything within the category that God has defined as food. He's not saying you can eat bacon. Bacon's forbidden. It's not food to begin with. Paul is not saying, these weaker brothers can come in eating bacon or whatever. No, he's not saying that at all. You have to understand the context in which he writes. They're observing the dietary laws. The context is meat eaters versus vegans. That's Paul's context. Anything is in reference to kosher meat omnivores versus vegans. One believes he or she can eat kosher animals and plant-based foods. The other believes you can only eat plant-based foods. Kosher animals, or I should say kosher omnivores versus vegans. You following me? Some say plant-based only, others say plant-based and supplement it with some meat, kosher meat. This is what's going on here. One person believes he can eat anything, the weak person eats only vegetables. Well, here's the short and skinny of it. God allows for both positions. God, within his dietary laws, allows for both ideas, both positions. Each group, though, has made their own position on this a dogma to defend and protect and project. And now they're fighting with each other. And the whole community is siding with the kosher omnivores or the vegans. You know, you see this whole community is going to split on this issue. It's horrible, especially in light of the fact that both positions are allowed within God's dietary laws. What about today? What about today? We see the same thing today. We wrestle with the same issues. These issues that we find in the Word of God, the ancient text, are really issues that we find in every generation. This is very relevant for us. So let me give you some of the big names. So there's a nutritarian omnivore. His name is Dr. Joel Fuhrman. He's one of the celebrated nutritarians of our day, and he advocates for a nutritarian approach to diet, and that would be the bulk of your diet is whole plant-based foods supplemented with a minimal amount of animal products. And then you have, on the other side, in the vegan camp, Dr. T. Colin Campbell, who's one of the most celebrated vegan doctors out there today. He's very passionate as well. And guess what? They both just slam each other. I mean, they're in great, argumentation with each other on diets and dietary issues. And so we see this even today in our professional circles as we discuss the issues of diet. Now, I just want to read this from Dr. Fuhrman, and it's from his Eat to Live book, a very popular book. He has helped thousands and thousands of people stop diabetes, arthritis, heart disease. He's even reversed it with his plan and his approach to eating. He's done remarkable things in this arena. He says this: nutritional excellence, which involves eating plenty of vegetables, fruits, and beans, does not have to exclude all animal products, but it has to be rich in high nutrient plant foods, which should make up well over 80% of your caloric intake. No more than 10% of your total calories should come from animal foods. Now, Dr. Campbell's going to argue with that. People in the vegan camp, there are going to be doctors that are going to argue any animal products whatsoever are going to damage and hurt you. Some will even say damage and hurt you significantly. So you got a lot of ideas surrounding diet that are very passionate, and we see that today in the groups that are doing the research. Even in our small community here in the Harvest, right? We have some who are very passionate about whole plant-based foods. We have some very passionate vegans. We also have some people that are very passionate about also including healthy, in moderation, meat, fish, and fowl. Yeah. And for me, I eat a little meat, and my preference is organic meat. I don't like the CAFO meat. I don't like all the pesticides and the hormones and the antibiotics and all that kind of stuff. But I do. I'm a nutritarian. I started with that with Joel Fuhrman's book. I taught that class here, if you remember. And that's the approach I really like. Now I went on to be a vegan. And I was doing pretty good for about 6 months. And I learned a lot. But I returned to what I had started with, and that was the nutritarian approach, which allows for some meat in my diet. Now, I want to say up front, this was never that important to me when I was in my 30s and 40s or 20s, Now that I'm 60, guess what? I can feel the impact of food and my food choices. I can feel it, Now, for me, and everyone's body's different. This is not a cookie-stamped approach to healthy eating, right? But I can tell you, when I eat red meat, CAFO red meat, every time without exception, I end up with a low-grade fever for several days. It hurts me. And it takes a while to pass that through because meat is harder to break down, of course. And every time I have free range like bison or elk, you know what? I don't have that problem. What I've concluded is this, that I've built up such a level of pesticides and growth hormones and everything else from eating CAFO meat, for decades, that it doesn't take much to trigger all that, right? That's a problem. So for me, I'm paying more attention to what I'm eating today. And so these issues are important to, I think, all of us except the young, but it's okay. You'll get old like me too, and it'll become important to you. So what are we going to do? I think what we need to do is this. We need to be sure to make sure we don't become too passionate about our views of diet. In this sense, if we become too passionate, sometimes we can move into that place of being dogmatic about it, and then we begin to judge one another on those issues. And that's what we want to refrain from. I'm saying these issues are important, and we do need to look into them. We're in a health crisis in America. Most Americans are experiencing significant chronic illnesses at earlier and earlier ages. So as a nation, we've been going the wrong way for a long time. And so, we need to turn this around. We need to educate ourselves. We need to become informed. And that process is going to be different for everyone. And so we need to be gracious with each other as we're moving down and learning from each other what can really help us in our community. So, how are we going to handle this important, passionate area of diet? I say this. Let's allow what God himself allowed, and let's disallow what he has forbidden. Let's not go beyond that and add fences around it until we have a case for a strict veganism. And let's not loosen it to the point that all of a sudden we have pig, the bat, the cat, and the rat on our menus, right? Let's try to stay in that middle zone and work together and help each other as we embrace a biblical diet. And within that diet, both a kosher omnivore and vegan approach to diet. We need to unite around God's diet and then help each other really refine that in a way that's beneficial and helpful and healthy for us. God doesn't say how much meat you can have. He doesn't get down into the weeds on this stuff. But we have the ability to reason, to study, and do the research. What all the good, solid research says out there is that we consume way too many animal products. And the evidence is in the rise of chronic illnesses that are related to diet in America. So it's a big issue. And we have to rely on those that are specialists in the area of health and nutrition, guide us in these areas. And we're all at different places in the harvest on that. So, let's allow each other the freedom to have our opinions and to also listen to each other so that we can change opinions and grow together as we get tighter and tighter in these things that are important to all of us. So let me go down now and let's see how Paul addresses this divisive issue, this issue that became divisive in his community. Romans 14:3. Let not the one who eats, and we'll put that slide up. It's slide 81, great. Let not the one who eats, and I put in brackets, kosher meat, to help the reader understand what actually he's saying. Let not the one who eats kosher meat despise the one who abstains from kosher meat. In other words, the kosher omnivores should never look down their nose at someone who's a vegan, should never treat someone less if they choose to be a vegan, to never treat them with scorn or disdain or to reject them, kind of keep them at a distance, Well, I'm not inviting them over. I don't even know how to cook vegan. I don't even know what a carrot is. I hate garlic. No, actually, those attitudes are inappropriate. Paul says to the kosher meat eaters, do not treat your vegan brothers and sisters with condescending contempt. Then he shifts gears, verse 3. And let not the one who abstains from kosher meat pass judgment on the one who eats kosher meat, for God has welcomed him. In other words, the vegan isn't to criticize and call to account the kosher meat eater. And go even further in censoring him. Well, I'm not going to invite him over to my house, with his meat breath and breathing all his meat stuff on me. Yeah, don't do that. He's your brother. Dietary issues are not salvific. Don't make him a deal breaker when it comes to fellowship. Fellowship's far more important. God has already welcomed him, just like he's welcomed you. You both are his children. God gave us an omnivore diet. Leviticus chapter 11, Deuteronomy chapter 14. And it's a restricted diet. You can only eat certain kosher animals. And then he gave us an organic plant-based food as the basis of our food. All the way back in the garden. The garden was a vegan diet. It was the ideal diet. Back when we were living hundreds and hundreds of years, that was the only diet that could sustain you for that longevity, right? This diet, I think, also comes back into view in the age to come, by the way. That's where we're moving towards. So this restricted omnivore diet is a move towards God's ideal. And it's a good diet for the world we live in and for the phase of redemption that we're in. So I want to encourage us to respect each other, love each other, fellowship with each other, whether we're kosher meat eaters or vegans. We need to work hard at our unity while also respecting our differences. Some of you really differ with me on different subjects. Very passionate. Sometimes I feel like Rodney Dangerfield. I just want a little respect. I want to say this. I respect your right to differ with me. You have every right to differ with me, and I respect that right to differ with me. But love me. I love you. Let's fight for our unity, even in our differences. Even in our differences. Romans 14:4. Who are you to pass judgment on the servant of another? This is brilliant. This is where Paul really kind of gets down to the nitty-gritty. Who are you to pass judgment on the servant of another? It is before his own master that he stands or falls, and he will be upheld, for the Lord is able to make him stand. Paul says to those that are judging each other and criticizing each other and censoring each other, he says, who are you? It's a great question, like, who are you? Because last time I checked, I didn't see nail prints in your hands or feet. So if you want to judge your brother or sister, would you please tell Yeshua, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, to get off his Father's throne so you can sit on it while you pass judgment on servants that are not even yours? It is a killer statement by Paul. And it sets the matter straight. Yes, we can have differences in our opinions about diet, but we don't have a right to criticize and belittle each other or censor each other. No. We are the children of God. We're not the Messiah. So, I don't know if I want to get into the next part of my sermon because it's too long. I'm either going to rush it or skip it. And both are bad options. But one is worse. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is maybe end early since we're going to have a Purim celebration today. But I do want to say maybe I'll at least get down to... No, I think I'm going to just skip that. Let me just go to my conclusion. I do want to do my slide. Can I go to slide number 91? as you guys go there. This is slide 91. Okay, so this is Dr. Joel. It's kind of blurry, sorry. It's Dr. Joel Fuhrman's food pyramid, and you can find it at drfuhrman.com. And that's right at the very bottom, dr.fuhrman.com. You can go there, a lot of good information there. And there's a lot of good vegan sites too that have great information as well. It just depends on where you're at and what you're wanting to do, but there's a lot of good resources. This is one of them, but it's in this food pyramid that he begins to sort out based on the science of the day, what's a good balanced diet. You know, you can't just live on meat alone, okay? In fact, meat should be less part of your diet than what the whole plant-based foods are on that. So anyway, that's something that might be helpful for you. So in conclusion, I just want to say that God has given us whole food plant-based, a whole food plant-based diet that can be supplemented with kosher animals. And that as a community, we need to accept each other in table fellowship. We need to embrace this paradigm of food and diet and accept each other and fellowship with each other. And I want to say, now that I'm 60, for me, pressing into a much healthier diet has done wonders for me. And that whole issue of approaching veganism and way minimizing my meat has revolutionized my health. And if you're struggling with chronic illness and chronic issues, I encourage you to look into Dr. Joel Fuhrman or some of the vegan specialists that can really give you some guidance in your food choices. And I promise it'll revolutionize your life. And if you don't want to do that, that's okay too. I'm not your mom, I'm not your dad, I'm not going to tell you what you can eat or can't eat. I'm not going to do that. I love you anyway. So I'm not judging you, and I love you. And so let's accept each other. Let's not look down our noses and criticize each other. Instead, let's celebrate and let's fellowship. This, I believe, is the heart of God. So our rule in the harvest is expressed in this saying, slide 97. In essentials, unity. In non-essentials, liberty. In all things, charity. That is our ideal. That's what we want to hit the ground running with. To be united in the essentials, to give liberty to everyone in non-essentials, and then in all matters, love one another, even in spite of our differences. Therefore, we will not judge each other's in matters of veganism versus kosher omnivorism. Both are explicitly allowed by God. Let's accept each other with smiles and open arms, regardless of the aforementioned diets. When you come to our home, we have people over from time to time. When you come to our home, Don and I will accommodate as best we can your food preferences. Be they kosher omnivoreism, if that's even a word. You know I'm nearing the end when I'm making up words. Kosher omnivoreism or whole plant-based foods. We know how to cook vegan. We've learned from different people in our community that do that well. And if you come over as a vegan, we're doing vegan. I do vegan most of the week. Most of the week I do vegan. You know, I do one meal a week, maybe two on a good week. Maybe it's a bad week. I'll do a little bit of kosher meat with that. But by and large, I do mostly, the vast majority of all my meals are whole plant-based foods. And I'm not saying anyone here needs to do that. That's what works for me, okay? So we're going to accommodate everyone. If you come over and you say, man, I'm a big steak eater, I'm going to buy steak. We're going to eat steak, or at least you're going to eat steak. I might eat vegan that night, but whatever. I'm going to accommodate you. What I'm not going to do is serve unclean foods, nor will I eat unclean foods. That which God has forbidden, I will not serve. And if it's served to me, I'll with great respect and honor, get myself out of that. And the way to get out of that, if someone serves you a big pork brat, like a friend, and they don't understand the dietary laws, don't judge them. Just say, oh man, that looks great. It smells even better. But my doctor said I can't have it. It's a diet issue. They don't need to know that your doctor is Jesus. He's the great physician, but there's a way to work with people where they're at. Okay. God is first and foremost loving, compassionate, and merciful. And within those attributes, he brings forth truth. And truth without love alienates and destroys relationships. I'll give you one story. I don't have much time, but this is back 25 years ago. We're at the park, and we got this big grill. We always have big grills, and everyone's throwing their meat on that. Back then, I don't think there were any vegans, but back then they're throwing meat, but they're all within the dietary laws, what God said is edible. And we had a family there. It was a new family. They'd been with us for about 3 weeks, and they put up pork brats on the grill with all the other food cooking. And the pork brats, they kind of pop and splatter, and so we had our food terrorist. There's always one in every community. We had our food terrorist come over and say, "Who put that on the grill?" I'm thinking, no, it's our new people. We're trying to grow. We're trying to help people find the love of God through Jesus, right? The dietary laws come later, right? So this person said, well, those are mine. I put them on. What are they? They're pork brats. What? It's an abomination. That's going to defile our grill. Look at it. We can't even eat our food now. Get that off. Get that off. And it was too late. I couldn't do anything. It was too late. Damn was already done. And we did. Those people never came back. They never came back. So I had to take that person to the side and say, look, that doesn't work for us. We work with love first and mercy. We take people where they're at, and we try to help move them along without compromising on our own standards, of course. But we want to accept people where they're at and help them, because the world's all mixed up on all kinds of things, as Dr. Randy was saying. So we want to take people where they're at and help them. That person would not listen to me. Went on to do that over and over and over. Yeah. You know what the Lord did? The Lord moved that person out of our community, because that person was being divisive and splitting the community. And I'm saying, you know what? We don't need that. Now, I think our community is way beyond that. We have really grown. And I want to encourage us to continue to grow in these things, to embrace these things, and walk in these things. But the most important thing I want us to understand is that God's revealed himself first as a God who is loving, graceful, or full of grace, full of mercy, and truth. But the truth comes down after the encounter with his love and his grace and his mercy. And so let's make sure we're doing a good job as we love people, accept them, and help them step into the Torah, the lighter and the weightier issues. Amen? Shabbat Shalom. We will see you in a few minutes at the other end of the building for our Purim Fest. Shabbat Shalom.
And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, This is the way you shall bless the children of Israel. Say to them, May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And we add, in the name of Yeshua our Messiah, the Prince of Peace, so they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Receive now the name of Yahweh. Yivarechecha Yahweh ve'ish murecha Yaher Yahweh panav elecha ve'ihunecha Yisa Yahweh panav אליו אליך, וישם לך שלום. בשם ישוע המשיח, שר השלום, שבת שלום.